Kyrie Irving is, of course, one of the best offensive players in the league, but he struggled from the field in Game 1. Part of it was, frankly, just him missing open shots he usually makes. Another piece was Drew Holiday. Holiday held him to 2 of 6 shooting, and as you can see here, we're going to pull up this graphic for you where that stacks up statistically. It's among the worst performances of his finals career when you just look at the pure percentage there. But Michael Wilbon, there was something about Kyrie's game that had you concerned, but maybe we're going to take a little glass half full approach here?
Yeah, more than half full, Malika. The shots that Kyrie took, if you just look at previous games in the playoffs, he's taking those shots all the time, and he's hitting them at least 50% of the time. We've talked about this through the playoffs. Even over outstretched, and look at this, he's closely guarded in some of these shots. The same shots, not finishing around the rim. If you ask me, look at the spots, elbow, favorite spots. Josh knows this, having to try to guard him. The spots that Kyrie prefers on the floor, he gets there. He got there the other night. He missed them. That's basketball. But isn't there an NBA today thing about make or miss league?
Yes.
Okay, that's what it is. Kyrie Irving, my bet is, ain't missing those shots tonight. That's my bet.
But this is not a team to go one-on-one against. Right? This Celtics team may be the worst team to attack for Kyrie Irving, and that the way the Pacers were playing you guys, and the way you guys played a little bit with moving the ball. The Dallas Mavericks had 9 assists. We talked about it. The lowest in the finals since 2007.
Luka only 1. That can't happen.
That can't happen.
It's not even the 1 assist. There were only 6 opportunities.
They weren't even getting opportunities to assist the ball. So, Josh, seeing that, what are the coaches saying in the locker room to say, we got to get touches, we got to spread this thing around?
They got to look to see how Boston is playing them, and they got to look to have DJ initiate a little bit more, because Kristaps is sitting in the paint doing that, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but they need other guys to initiate and get them off ball, dribble a handoff, ball screen. They're going to have to do that, and he's going to have to be aggressive. The first time he really touched the ball was 4 minutes into the game, and that's something that can't happen, especially for your vet who's been there before.
It's time now for Heart of the Game, our new segment with Josh Hart. So we talked a little bit about what Porzingis did offensively, but defensively he was so successful as well. How did he do that?
Yeah, the positive thing for him defensively, you don't want to put him on one-on-one situations. You want to put him on non-shooters and allow him to roam, allow him to clog up the paint, the block shots. He guarded me a lot, unfortunately, and I hated it. And I tried to ball screen, roll, short pocket. But the thing you can kind of dictate and help is when he gets into that deep drop, you got to either be confident enough to knock this down, or if you can't get into a DHO and allow Luka or Kyrie to get full head of steam. And then if you don't do it, you got to attack his feet. You got to score, and you got to make him work. And that's something that he didn't really have to do on the defensive end.
A free safety Kristaps Porzingis is a dangerous, dangerous thing. What do they need from him in this game, too? Do they need that version of Porzingis?
Well, I don't think, listen, 18 points in the first half. I mean, they don't even need that much. I mean, his presence defensively and offensively is potent enough. I think with him on the court, they win a championship. Without him on the court for a significant period of time, they don't. That's what I think he means in this series because of what he poses.
And size matters, right? It always will. The basket's 10 feet tall. He's huge.
The threat of him
2 of 11 when he was people trying to score on him, and he posts up on the mismatches. When they switch on him, he damages those guards.
Boston took Game 1, and the beauty of these Boston Celtics, right, is they are a commanding conglomerate, as they reminded us on Thursday, even more so with Kristaps Porzingis back in the mix. But that begs the question, who is the best player on this Boston Celtics team? Well, Jason Kidd, he had some ideas.
Jaylen's the best player, so just looking at what he does defensively, he picked up Luka full court. He got to the free throw line. He did everything, and that's what your best player does.
I mean, I don't think he's lying. I think JB has been aggressive in every single way.
Oh, bad. J Kidd, man. I see what he's doing.
All right, Josh, as a player who's been in these locker rooms, how do you read an opposing coach trying to maybe divide your team a little bit?
Man, I just laugh at it. I think that's the biggest thing, because there's so much at stake right now for them. They're not worried about who's the best player, who gets MVP, who gets whatever. They're worried about winning a championship. So Jason Tatum is the best player on that team. Jaylen Brown is the most important player on the team because of his role offensively and defensively, but I'm sure they're probably sitting there laughing at it. Jason Kidd better not poke the bear, though. You better not.
I don't disagree with you, but for effort for Jason Kidd for trying. I mean, when we look at the Boston Celtics, what's the one thing? We look at their roster, we know they're loaded. Best starting five in basketball in a lot of people's eyes. Obviously, the best record in basketball throughout the season. Jason Tatum has been a star against the Dallas Mavericks this season, averaging over 35. Jaylen Brown has been right there as well. What's the one thing that serves as an impediment on occasion for the Boston Celtics? Too much one-on-one. With the threes particularly, it's my turn, it's your turn, it's my turn, it's your turn, as opposed to playing two-man ball and feeding off of one another. It has been like that. So if you're the Dallas Mavericks and you can get them into that type of ball playing, that did serve a role, play a role in them coming from a 29-point deficit and knocking it down to 8 in game one. You're trying something. Why? Because you're worried. Because after you saw what you saw in game one, we got to come up with something. Because I might not have enough to beat these boys.
Remember though, Stephen A., Dallas lost game one to Oklahoma City, won a series.
Yep.
Dallas lost game one to the Clippers, won the series. I don't think it's about worrying. I just think this is a savvy move by Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd's a Hall of Fame player. He knows what opposing locker rooms are like. He knows that worked. And by the way, I don't think it'll work either, Josh. But if you're Jason Kidd, you test it. It worked in 2022. We saw Jason and Jaylen taking turns and not playing together the way they have played subsequently. So if you're Jason Kidd, why wouldn't you try it? I think he did it with a chuckle. I think he did it not caring whether it would work or not. He's sending a message. And by the way, I think he believes some of it. When he pointed out specifically defensively what Jaylen Brown does, Jason Kidd's one of the great defensive guards of all time. That wasn't by accident. So I think he's making a point. He's putting his finger in their chest a little bit in that locker room. We'll see how they respond.
Well, that's your job as an opposing team, is to test the fabric. You can test it on the floor, you test it off the floor, you test it any way you can. And the Celtics are on top, right? And anytime you're on top, people used to come at Curry and Durant, and they'd come at you in the media, they'd come at you on the street. And the point is, and Josh knows this, what matters is your locker room, the fabric of that locker room and what they can withstand. And that's why, not because that Knicks fabric, you guys had that this year. But it is hard to find, man. We tear teams apart more than we ever have. Maybe on purpose, maybe not. Maybe that guy down there, maybe.
Not me.
I don't know, maybe.
Not
you
me.
might.
That's social media.
That's somebody else. I thought it was you for a second there. But we do this. We attack teams, and especially when you're supposedly the best team. That's the team we come out the hardest, and that's what Kidd's doing.
Hey.
He's trying to make it, break it up.
Hey. Wasn't me. Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy.
What do the Mavs need to do to bounce back in this game two?
Malika, they can't get down 17 in the first quarter. I mean, you just can't do that against what is probably the more talented team. Boston is a more talented team. Doesn't mean they're going to win the series. But Dallas, you can't come in here in the finals and spot the Celtics 17 at home. You cannot do that. I don't think they will. By the way, I think this is going to be a very close game. I do. Because just human nature. Josh has been part of these things. Boston got their attention, okay? They should have had it already in game one. Apparently, Boston showed up and thought it was going to be a little easier than it was. Boston already learned that lesson in 2022. So Boston knew what was at stake. You cannot give away NBA Finals games. But they got to move the ball, Malika. Dallas has to make it a lot easier going one-on-one against this great Celtic defense. That's not going to work.
The Celtics, every series since 2020, have thrown in a clunker, and usually it's here at home. We've sat here for them. We've seen it. So that goes back to the issue of, do you trust them? Okay, we'll find out. This is prove-it time. But let me just say this. Dallas needs somebody else. Luka can't be himself physically. Not the way this game is starting. I'm going to nominate somebody. Tim Hardaway Jr., a veteran player who's been in big games, who wasn't he a DNP in the first half? Can't have that. So if we're going to pick somebody to help out, Josh knows Tim Hardaway Jr. can't get hot and be important and be a factor in these games.
Yeah, he can't get hot. But for me, Dallas, they just need to come out with energy. Like you said, you can't spot them 17 points. But I think for them, honestly, this should be the easiest game for them mentally, because all you heard about the last 2-3 games is how you got blown out, how you got out physical, and that's what all they talked about the last several games. So they got to come out with energy, and I think that's something to go to do. I think it's going to be a very close game, like Bob said.
Energy is fine. Moving the basketball is fine. Don't mean a damn thing if you can't hit jump shots. P.J. Washington, 0 for 3. Listen. P.J. Washington, 0 for 3 on three-pointers. Derrick Jones, 2 of 9 from the field. That's where Tim Hardaway Jr.'s got to come in. You're Jason Kidd. You got to put Tim Hardaway Jr. out there because the potential for him to get streaky, things can happen, and it can make things very, very interesting. And by the way, Kyrie Irving, 5 games this postseason, he has shot in worse than 40%. The previous 4 games, the very next game that he came back, he shot 10 percentage points better. He needs to do that tonight.
Here comes Luka Doncic. That boo that you are hearing is for Luka.
I love the Tim Hardaway Jr. take too, because for us, game 5 of the first round, we played Philly in Philly, close that game first. No, game 6, sorry. Buddy Hield didn't play the whole series, or did spot minutes. He came out and almost outscored us in the second quarter by himself. You need somebody like that.
But Chris Paul said something interesting when we had him on the conference finals. Your stars win you 2 games, your bench can win you 1, and your coach wins you 1. So Tim Hardaway may do it this game. He can win you 1 game. He's not winning you the series.
But how much does your...
I know. He can get 1.
And by the way, Kristaps Porzingis, who has been great in a storyline for us, my over-under on his number 3s made tonight is 2.
Okay.
But
he's not going to win you any more games in this series either.
What's it?
How much does your defense need to win you? Because the Dallas Mavericks have preached defense all season long, and they were blown by time and time again.
I'll tell you what, Malika and Josh, everybody knows this. Defense is the only constant. That travels. They say that, right? Defense, you should be able to rely on your defense every game.
Well, they were blown by 60% of the time. That's the most the Celtics have ever done that in the last 10 years in that game.
I'll tell you what, Dallas hasn't seen a team like this yet. Right. Minnesota was good. Oklahoma City was good.
They saw him in game 1.
Yes, they did. But before that, they haven't seen it.
All right.
Everybody but Mr. Michael Wilbon is rolling with the Celtics. You're our contrarian. I'm going to start with you.
Looking at Luka limp around like this and move that gingerly, I'm tempted to change. But they'll figure out how to get around it. I think they'll win this game and even this series.
New users can get a bet reset up to $1,000 if your bonus bet and your first bet doesn't win. ESPN Bet is the only place to find exclusive offers from your favorite shows and personalities. And Stephen A.
That's a good-looking brother right there on that ESPN Bet. It's a good-looking brother. I don't know where they're, but it's a good-looking brother. Here's the deal, y'all. I was gonna go with the Mavs, and then obviously Luka looks so ginger. It's like, listen, I hope I'm wrong because I want this to be a series, but you can't expect but so much from the Dallas Mavericks if Luka is compromised, and Boston isn't.
I really wanted to go. I don't know why I didn't go with the Mavs. I should have gone with the Mavs. I'll tell you what. It's going to be a close game, though. I will say this. I don't know who's. It's going to be a very close game, and I'm excited to see it. But I'm really. I shouldn't have picked the same team as you, Stephen A. That's the other side of
Tim Hardaway.
P.J. Washington, they need him to have a big game, and I'm going with the Celtics because they're just so well balanced. They just have to have a good game. Kyrie has to be exceptional. Luka injured, he has to be exceptional. P.J. Washington, I like him to come out and do something because he's shown that he's able to score.
I feel you. Listen. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Dallas Mavericks win this game because I want a series. But I don't know. But I will say this, Malika, if Bob thought somebody was going to get blown out, would he admit that? No.
I really
be diplomatic. I think it's going to be
I'm not being diplomatic.
Okay.
I think it's going to be close. Right. And by the way, here's an interesting thing. I always tried to create, when I was at GM, the best margin for error that you could. You can still play bad and win. This Celtics team has a big margin for error.
Yeah.
Dallas, small.
And that's exactly what Josh is saying. Yep. Dallas needs to be near perfect. Their best players need to show up and be spectacular. Their supporting cast needs to all give you something. Versus Boston as an ensemble, they have 6 that they can go to.
The only caveat to that is sometimes this Celtics team beat themselves.
Yes.
Sometimes they beat themselves.
And we hope that's the night.
We're still waiting.